So we've talked about the original trilogy to a certain extent. I mean, we've talked about our experiences watching the original trilogy, certainly. I know one of the things I wanted to talk about was the prequels, but I mean, and if you want to listen to our thoughts on the prequels, I mean, our commentaries are available on Sonic Cinema for all three of them with Dave. And even though they were done like 11, 12 years ago, I mean, I think our feelings about them still are fundamentally the same. You know,
although I would like to retract everything I've said about Jake Lloyd. I think his performance is just, one for the ages. I think
I was reformatting some of my review of Attack of the Clones, and there was a point in there where I said that I felt like Jake Lloyd's performance was unfairly maligned, and I just had to delete that because it's like I don't feel that way anymore.
Yeah.
It was completely maligned, but I mean, I don't necessarily blame. I don't put all of the blame on him.
I don't put any blame on him, really.
It was. There's a certain point though where it's like the actor is ultimately responsible, and he didn't really give a good performance. But that being said, he wasn't necessarily well directed or well serviced with regards to the screenplay either. And I mean, I think
there are the scene where he's saying goodbye to his mom.
That was really good.
That was
very good.
That was actually one of the better scenes.
Yeah.
And and Jake Lloyd is actually serviceable in that scene.
But I think it's because of the fact that it's one of those scenes that really adds weight to the character. The pod race adds no real weight to the character whatsoever.
Right.
Other than the few seconds or so at the end where he's trying to use the Force. It's like where you sort of get this feeling that he's using the Force.
Right.
But it's like there's nothing we learn about him in the pod race that makes you think this guy is.
There's nothing.
He's going to become Darth Vader one.
Right.
But the scene saying goodbye to his mother is very different. I mean, it is something that I think shows that there is a level of depth to the character that you just don't see throughout the rest of that movie.
Right.
And I have to give credit to, I can't remember what her name was, who played his mother.
Shmi.
I mean, yeah, I know she was in some Bergman films. And
I can't remember the name of the actress either.
Yeah. I think it was Pernilla August.
Pernilla August, yes.
Yeah.
That's probably the closest we're going to come.
Yeah, and she has worked with Bergman, and it's like she's a really good actress. So, I mean, I think that helps, but Samuel L. Jackson is a really great actor. But for some reason, that the scenes with Anakin and the Jedi Council don't work as well as that scene does. And it's like, you look at the expression on Jake Lloyd's face, and it's like, you can tell he's trying to convey some sense of darkness to his character. It's just not there.
What's that got to do with anything?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there are so many line readings he has that are just awful. He's one of the people that I feel sorry for the most because it's like, there's no telling how much that performance just completely derailed any career he might have had. In Hollywood, but at the same time, it's like he wasn't well serviced by the screenplay he was given and by the direction. I think it's one of the biggest problems with the prequels, or at least episodes 1 and 2, that it had been 22 years since George Lucas had actually directed a movie. And especially with episode 1, I think it shows, because you take that much time off between movies, you're gonna get rusty.
Yeah, but you can only say that so much before it really starts to,
But the thing is, it's like
have you seen some of those articles that were posted recently about some of the people that Lucas actually approached originally to direct episode 1?
Yeah, I think so.
Ron Howard being one of them.
Yeah.
I can't remember any of the other names off the top of my head, but I know Ron Howard was approached.
And Ron Howard would have been a good choice. I mean, they had worked together on Willow. So, I mean, that would have been an interesting choice. It's not really something he had ever done before.
Right.
I mean, he'd done with Apollo 13, obviously. He'd done effects-heavy work. Cocoon was another movie. It had some effects to it. But it was first and foremost an actor's movie. But yeah, I mean, it's the fact of the matter is, it's like if you focus on what could have been with, if only this person had directed, if only this person had directed, it's like you're just, it's like the people who think, oh well, what would Indiana Jones 4 have been like had Frank Darabont's script been approved? And it's like, if you're just gonna keep playing that game, I mean,
and that's all it is.
You're gonna deflate any chance of finding something enjoyable in those movies at all.
Exactly, that's a good point.
And the fact of the matter is, it's like I do think Lucas gets more confident by the time he gets to Episode 3. By the time he gets to Revenge of the Sith, he's much more confident, I think, when it comes to his actors and his direction in general. I mean, the pacing in Revenge of the Sith is pretty terrific. I mean, there's not really a dead spot in that movie where it's like, oh, how long is this going to take? I mean, and it gets that way, but also Revenge of the Sith is probably the best. It's arguably the strongest story of the three because we know exactly what's going to happen.
Well, that's the thing is, like, I think probably one of the reasons Revenge of the Sith is regarded as the best prequel, which that's the thing that's really stretching it. But I think that's the thing is, like, this is the one that actually has the stuff that we've been waiting to see.
Yeah.
That's why it's still kind of watchable.
Mm-hmm.
It's because it's
Oh yeah. I mean,
I think like there was like talk of like I think you and I were talking at one point right before Episode 3 came out. It was like, yeah, this movie's gonna have to be like 3 hours long to see all this stuff that like we like there were so many things that still hadn't happened yet.
Mm-hmm.
Like most of it had all just been hinted at in Episode 2.
Yeah.
But yeah, we were talking about how Episode 3 was probably gonna have to be 3 hour, quote unquote, 3 hours long. Or like, I don't think I'd mind to see it as long as it's enjoyable and. But yeah, I think that's probably one of the only reasons that Episode 3 is actually at all watchable is because it actually has the stuff that we've been waiting to see.
Yeah.
That being, this fateful lightsaber duel between Obi-Wan and Anakin, and then
Anakin turning to the dark side. You see the Emperor. You see the destruction of the Jedi Order. And that is a good point. I mean, I do think that's part of the reason that the movie works because I've contended for a while. I don't think it's ever since Episode 2 came out that the story he told in Episode 1 and Episode 2 was wrong. Not necessarily all of the pieces, but not necessarily all of the pieces of those stories, but just the fact that there are aspects of those stories that you didn't need. I feel like Episode 1 basically should have been a combination of the stories in Episode 1 and 2, with the finale of Episode 1 being at the start of the Clone Wars.
Then Episode 2
Episode 2 would be
straight
about the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
And episode
not just the start of the Clone Wars.
No, just like a continuation
and
of
not
the Clone
that god awful love story either.
Yeah.
Wow.
But the thing is, it's like by making Anakin Skywalker a kid in Episode 1, in Episode 2, it's like one of the reasons the Jedi Council wasn't comfortable with him, being trained is because, he's apparently too old. But in Episode 2, you see the younglings who are pretty much about the same age.
Well, I thought my thinking on that was that you were picked to be trained as a Jedi because they could tell you were Force sensitive when you were really, really like almost newborn.
Oh,
that was my take on it, and that's why I didn't question the little kids in Episode 2.
Well, I don't either.
That's what I thought. Was like that's why because Jake Lloyd is like 10, 11. In 9, 10, 11 in Phantom Menace, and I was like, okay, so that's too old. So like, how young are these kids when they're picked to be trained as Jedi?
And the thing is, it's like I understand, intellectually speaking, I get it because I mean, yeah, like you said, it's like these kids are obviously picked very young, and they're separated from their families when they're very young.
Yeah,
when they're discovered to be Force sensitive. I think ultimately the point in saying he's too old in Phantom Menace is that he has that lingering connection with his mother. And it's gone on a little longer than they normally would allow something like that to go on. I mean, I understand that that's part of the reason, but it's like Yoda also says the same thing about Luke in Empire. But I get that because he's in like his 20s, his teens or 20s at that point. So I get that. Yeah.
Too old to begin the training.
And one of the other things that I have a problem with as far as Anakin being a kid is that in episode 1, you have this, when he goes off with Qui-Gon and everybody to become a Jedi, and any scenes with Natalie Portman as Padme, it is very obvious that Padme is looking at him as sort of his surrogate mother, or she's having a very maternal reaction to him. She wants to be very protective of him. And yet, in episode 2, they're supposed to be a romantic couple. Now, 10 years have passed, but it's still a little creepy to think about.
Yeah, just a little bit.
So, and that's part of my problem. But it's like, if
episode 2 gave us anything, it gave us Natalie Portman in a midriff.
This is true.
This
is very true. But
that's all I'll say about that.
But if he had started sort of as a teenager, and like they had both been teenagers, a development of the love story may have been a little bit better, easier to handle, and also the implication that he was too old to be trained as a Jedi would have made a lot more sense. Plus, you wouldn't have had the whole yippee and all of the terrible moments that Jake Lloyd had in Fan Mess.
Yes.
But the fact of the matter is, it's like
They did give us Watto, though. Watto was a good character.
Watto's a great character. There are a lot of really good things about the prequels. It's like, it's few and far between compared to the original trilogy. But it's like, I still contend that I still like the prequels to a certain extent. I mean, I will never love them as much as I love the original trilogy. But I like them because of how different the story is. I mean, being in my 20s when the prequels came out, it's like I was more interested in the political aspects of the story. And it's like the fact that you're basically what this story is you are basically seeing the Old Republic crumble. You're seeing the steps it takes towards becoming the Empire in each of those 3 movies. It's like, and there's another step in each movie. In episode 1, you basically end with Palpatine being the Supreme Chancellor of the Senate. In episode 2, he convinces Jar Jar Binks to give him powers to start the Clone Wars. And, I know there's a theory of him, Jar Jar Binks was a Sith Lord. No. The reason Palpatine was able to get him to give him those emergency powers was because he is weak-minded. And therefore, he used the Force on him. And then episode 3, you basically see the dissolution of the Old Republic that is completed when the Senate is disbanded, supposedly in A New Hope. So, I mean, that's the aspect of the story of the prequels that I actually find most interesting. And I like the arc, the sort of detective arc that Obi-Wan has in Attack of the Clones. I mean, it's not as well handled as it could be. It definitely could be better handled.
I mean, Kamino is a cool planet, but then it's like it's a lot of it wasn't a lot of it just like really obvious, the fact that it's like a lot of this quote unquote mystery that Obi-Wan's trying to solve in episode 2. I think I remember a lot of it being, thank you, Captain Obvious, when I was watching this. Like, one of them being, the fact that, they were at first they were trying to figure out why Kamino was, erased from, the star charts or whatever. And then, and then, or the archives or whatever. And then, it's like, then it's somehow it's one of the younglings that figures that out, and I'm like, I'm still not sure. It's still not clear to me in that scene, like in the scene with the younglings and Yoda. It's still not clear to me whether or not they were trying to. And that's the thing. Like, maybe I'm giving Lucas too much credit here, but like it's never clear to me whether or not they were trying to get the younglings to figure that out on their own to make it like a lesson, or if they really were relying on what the younglings thought. Now that's the things, like I think that's a lot of it was kind of like they were just relying on somebody, like just kind of like stumbling upon the solution. Now you know what I'm talking about.
That's oh yeah,
that seemed like we're like
that's actually a very good point.
That's kind of a stupid scene for me.
I never really thought of it that way. And,
I like Yoda in that scene, but like that's about it. But then like the it's just kind of stupid and pointless. It's just kind of like where is this mysterious planet? Why was it removed from the charts and or the archives or whatever? I can't remember the terminology, but then like one kid chimes in because somebody removed it from the archives.
Yeah,
and it's I was like, well, thank you, Captain Obvious. I'm just like, I'm sorry. I
never really did think of it that way. Yeah, I mean that
so much that mystery.
Yeah.
Finger quotes, please.
Yeah.
Take note of my finger quotes. So much of that mystery does seem pretty obvious to me. Kind of like you watch that again. Kind of like a lot of it does seem pretty. A lot of it does seem pretty. Half-assed, I think.
Yeah.
A lot of it does. Not a lot of it ever seems like it's that. That's the thing. Like, and then the stuff that like is never really truly explained still doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Like, who's this Darth
Master Sifo-Dyas?
Master Sifo? Who the hell is that? Like that's never explained.
I think
was that supposed to be Dooku or was that supposed to be?
I think that was somebody who. I think the expanded universe might have explained that better.
But yeah, but like we're talking about the movies though. Like
I know.
Because like you and I aren't don't read the books. Like our friend Daniel does.
Yeah.
Like he would have been handy to have at this point. He would have been good. He would have been good to have at this point. But like we're not really going to be discussing the novels or too much of the EU really.
Well, and especially because none of it's really canon anymore.
Right.
But
no, like that's the thing. Like there's so much of that aspect of this mystery that either doesn't make sense or is way too obvious.
Well, I mean,
that's why that part of Attack of the Clones is just kind of really boring to me. That's why.
And that is actually a very good point about that scene with the younglings and they, the fact that it's like, it does really, I think part of that is supposed to be in the the implication is that the dark side is clouding the thoughts of Yoda and Obi-Wan. That's why they can't figure it out on their own.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, when you really think about it,
but then the way that scene is played, particularly with Yoda, it kind of seems like Yoda's kind of like trying to use it as a lesson.
Yeah.
Kind of like truly wonderful the mind of a child is. And it's like he's having more fun. He doesn't seem conflicted in that scene. He seems like he's trying to conduct a lesson.
Mm-hmm.
More so than he seems like he's conflicted by the dark side or you know what I mean?
Right.
It's
that's a very good point. I mean, that the thing is, it's like there's so many of those issues. I think that could have just been completely. They could have been handled better if the structure of the prequels, especially 1 and 2, had been stronger.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I can see that to a certain extent. Like, I can see that sort of, the quote-unquote mystery being better played out in the context of a Clone Wars movie. As part of a Clone Wars movie, where it's like, oh, they're trying to find this assassin who's trying to kill Padme, and what if that assassination attempt is taking place during the Clone Wars? It's just another damn thing that they have to deal with, and I can see that having a lot more urgency and a lot more interest if it wasn't tied into the discovery of the clone. The cloning project that's happening on Camino,
which was started by this what's the guy's name?
It was
The character?
basically Master Sifo-Dyas, who I think is somebody who was probably a
Like he was the one who approached the Camino planet about doing that, right?
yeah.
Like he's the one who started the cloning.
Yeah, but the
But then
question is whether
Who is that?
Well, and the question is whether he is working for Dooku, who we know is
Yeah.
in league with Darth Sidious.
Well, that's the thing. Like, is it Dooku or is it not? I'm just like, it's just like
Yeah.
that stuff really starts to become kind of a head scratcher for me.
Right.
So that's when I get a little confused. I just kind of that's another part where that's just another point in the movie where I kind of just like lose my interest or my investment, in anything that might be going on, and then
Right.
it doesn't really kind of get me back until I think maybe around the scene with the arena at the end on Geonosis. That stuff was actually kind of cool. Like that's after just don't get us started on the love story.
Yeah.
For the love of God, for love of all things, don't get us started on that love story. What could we say? What could we possibly say about that tonight that hasn't already been said?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, it's and the thing is, it's not that the love story takes place in the context of because Han and Leia is a love story in the context of the Star Wars universe. It's the way that was performed and the way it was written by the actor
and directed by the director.
Yeah, and it was just a big miscalculation.
We got a really pretty love theme from John Williams, but
we got an amazing love theme.
That's
from John
about
Williams.
it, But that's the thing is like it's kind of like Titanic. It's just like two pretty people kind of finding each other in the midst of this this quote unquote tragedy, I guess. It's like that's kind of like I guess that canon will happen in intense circumstances. Hey, you're pretty, I'm pretty. We should be attracted to each other and I guess we should fall in love.
Well, that's the problem with the love stories in that context, where it's like it's just simply born out of a responsibility to have some sort of love story.
Mm-hmm.
It's not based on anything else beyond that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the, and I think that is part of the problem with the prequels. It's also, there's so many other aspects. It's not just the love story, because of the fact that it's not just it's basically wait a minute.
Snip snip.
Yeah. What was I going on about?
Well, do we want to talk about something else until we can get around to it? Let's get do you want to talk about because again what could we possibly say about this love story that hasn't already been said? What could we possibly say about Jar Jar that hasn't already been said? What could we possibly say about Jake Lloyd that hasn't already been said?
What hasn't already been said by us too.
Yeah.
We've already talked about this so many times.
I think that's the thing. I think we're at the point now when I think again, just one of the few things I did like about episode 2 was the stuff with the a lot of the up until the lightsaber duel with Dooku, which is just kind of just stupid to me. But a lot of the stuff from from what the kind of like the gladiator stuff, and then when the clones come in to save them, that part was interesting. That part kind of had my interest. I kind of liked I liked the way that Obi-Wan and Anakin and Padme played off of each other in that scene.
Yeah,
I thought that was actually kind of fun.
Well, and the fact that, and especially the fact that all three of them approached their, respective creatures in that scene in a different way.
Yeah.
Padme was by far like at first you think, oh well, I mean she's doing that to survive. No, she's taking charge of things.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like she's
it was
doing a better.
It was actually a
job
scene.
than
It was
Jedi
actually a
are.
scene that felt like it was being informed by character.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean I think
Which-
that's what we were talking about as far as the love story, where it's like,
None of the love story is
all
informed by
that-
character.
Yeah, it's all informed by the need
To have a love story.
to have a love story that goes in a certain direction.
Yeah.
And now I remember what I was going with.
Okay.
Where I was going with this. You know, there are other parts of the prequel trilogy that are like that as well.
Mm.
Like the idea of having Anakin be the creator of C-3PO. Like that's not necessary to the story at all.
No.
Except you have to figure out reason to have C-3PO in it because he and R2-D2 have been in all of them.
Yeah.
I mean, the way they introduce R2-D2 is much better.
Mm-hmm.
It's not any less ridiculous to a certain extent.
Yeah.
But it's more organic
Yeah,
to the context of the story.
Mm-hmm.
Like just having Anakin be the creator of C-3PO, it's like, why?
Yeah.
I mean, can't they? You know, when like maybe Naboo already have like a protocol droid or something like that. It's like, couldn't that be the reason they stumbled upon? Why is Anakin have to create him?
Yeah.
But
It's a protocol droid to help mom.
oh God, that's yeah. Yeah, and I think we point out that line of dialogue in the commentary too, and it was just.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's what I was going with, and I mean, I appreciate you helping me remember that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, the fact of the matter is, we did 3 feature-length commentaries on the prequels, and it's like there's not really a whole lot left to say that wouldn't just be a regurgitation of that, really.
Mhm.
I mean, you know, it's like our opinions of the prequels have been very set in stone since almost by the time they've been released.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean,
with the exception of the first couple of weeks when we were trying to this is good.
Yeah, we were especially with Phantom Menace.
I saw Phantom Menace I think 5 times in the movie theater because I wanted it to be good.
I saw Phantom Menace when it first came out. I saw Phantom Menace, I think 17 times.
Oh my God.
Well,
that's the thing. Like you and your mom,
with the 3D re-release, I think I got up to 20.
Oh Jesus.
But yeah. So, you know, I was younger. I was still, you know, I was still making my way.
You didn't know what you wanted. You didn't know what you wanted out of life.
You know, and I was still trying to.
I think I saw how many times did I see Attack of the Clones? I don't think maybe twice, maybe 3 times.
I think that one I might have seen like 4 or 5 times.
And then I think I saw Revenge of the Sith. I think 3 times. I think 3 or 4 times.
Yeah,
because I remember
either of those. I don't think I saw more than 4 or 5 times.
Yeah, right.
But that was part of that was because of the fact that my ability to see movies that much just dropped precipitously. Now it's rare that I get to some movies even once.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, especially with Phantom Menace, you watched it multiple times just to try to convince yourself that it was good.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, the fact of the matter is, I still feel very much the same way about it now than I did then. I feel like the strengths are still the strengths. I think the weaknesses are still the weaknesses. But I just have a different perspective on how strong those strengths are and how weak those weaknesses are.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the weaknesses are much more pronounced and much more obvious to me than they were back in 1999.
Yeah.
And I mean, in 1999, it was the first real original Star Wars movie in 16 years.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, this is exciting.
Exactly.
You know, and then the prequel.
It was marketed to death, and it was like
Yeah.
it was crammed down our throats, and like, you know, in marketing, and you know, and just like it was hyped
Oh yeah,
to heights that we'd never seen a movie hyped. You know,
yeah,
hyped
I mean,
before.
it was arguably the most anticipated movie ever made, and it's like, which is deathly ironic given how little people believed in the first Star Wars at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, this would be a good time to, I think, you know,
Transition to episode 7.
We're talking about hype. We're talking about, you know, marketing.
Speaking of hype, speaking of marketing,
we are on the cusp of the Force Awakens.
There is been an awakening. Sorry, that was a horrible. That's supposed to be Snoke though. It's been confirmed now.
Yeah,
it's Andy Serkis, the Supreme Leader Snoke.
I knew it was Andy Serkis. I just, you know, we didn't really know.
Well, wasn't there some talk about whether or not it was Andy Serkis or Benedict Cumberbatch?
Yeah, when the teaser first came out, there was talk about that. But yeah, I mean, it's Andy Serkis.
Yeah, it's unquestionably Andy Serkis now.
So we're transitioning from the marketing and the hype of the fan mess, and we are pretty much on the eve of the release of The Force Awakens, which has arguably seen just as much hype, just as much marketing. Of course, it's being distributed by Disney.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a surprise. It's a Star Wars movie. That's not a surprise.
Yeah. Something else we haven't really touched on yet is the Disney thing. But
yeah,
I guess
there's, you know, honestly,
I guess we'll get to that. Hopefully, we can get to that more organically at some point. But
well, yeah, I mean, and especially, I mean, I think especially once we start to really see, I think once we start to get to the standalone movies, and once we, you know, get some distance from Force Awakens coming out, and once we start to see a little bit more of the I mean, we already kind of know what the long-term plan is for Disney. The whole idea is to have a movie released every year from here on out.
So like this year it's going to be Force Awakens. The next one's going to be Rebels.
Rogue One.
Rogue One.
And then episode 8. And then the Han Solo. And then episode 9. And then the third standalone, which is supposedly Boba Fett. But I don't think anything's been confirmed yet. And then we have Star Wars Rebels, which is on Disney XD, and it's actually quite a good show. It's a strong.
I won't be able to contribute too much to a discussion about Rebels.
Yeah,
or
I mean,
Wars
it's a strong continuation of the quality of work that was going on with Clone Wars when that was canceled after the Disney acquisition.
The neat thing about Rebels, though, is you do actually see original trilogy characters in that, though. Right?
Yeah,
Darth Vader. You have Darth Vader. You have Lando Calrissian's in it.
He has had cameo. C-3PO, I think, has been an episode already. R2-D2 has been an episode. But yeah, I mean, especially this season, Darth Vader's very much like the main, sort of the main villain from behind the scenes.
Right.
You know, we're starting to see a little bit more of Darth Vader.
How's the voice work on Darth Vader? But I'm just curious.
I think it's James Earl Jones.
Is it seriously?
I think it is.
Because I know Anthony Daniels still does C-3PO's voice
and
whenever
Billy
possible.
D. Williams did Lando.
Is it seriously James Earl Jones?
I believe it's James Earl Jones.
Okay. That's
so yeah, I mean but he hasn't been in much so far.
Right.
He hasn't been in much. He's been in a few episodes. He was in the hour-long premiere of season 2. So yeah, I mean, we're starting to get into some of these other characters, but at the same time, we've got a group of new characters that's actually a pretty entertaining group. I mean, it's a pretty interesting group. It's funny because of the fact that you know, it's sort of a group that feels somewhat inspired by Firefly in terms of the makeup and the composition of the personalities, but it's very much in the Star Wars vein, and they've done a really good job of I think they've done a really good job of getting the getting the stories to where making it very much entertaining Star Wars stories, and very much a part of, what we all kind of wanted to see what the universe would be like between episode 3 and episode 4. That's basically what this is. And you see that, the Jedi aren't completely gone, and the Sith
Isn't Ahsoka in it?
Ahsoka is in it. She, it's one of the things where it's like she survives the Clone Wars, which you don't see her in Revenge of the Sith, so that was not necessarily guaranteed. But basically, and we're going to be going into spoilers here. Basically, what happened at the end of episode 5 or season 5 of Clone Wars was she was framed for blowing up the Jedi Temple, and and as a result, she was removed from the Jedi Order. But when she found the real culprit, they offered her a chance to come back, and she didn't. So she basically walks away from the Jedi Order at the end of season 5.
That's interesting.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's like that character grew so much. I mean, I remember when we watched the Clone Wars movie, and we're like, really? This is the best they could do? Right. I mean, the story is still pretty stupid.
Yeah.
For, like, really? This is what you do for a Clone Wars movie? But the fact of the matter is, it's like...
Well, wasn't the Clone Wars movie just 3 episodes kind of like
it was
slapped
just
together?
like 3-4 episodes, just one after another for a movie.
Yeah, and when I heard that like years later, I was like, oh, that makes so much sense because
and
that was 2008, right?
Yeah,
the Clone Wars movie.
Yeah, it was. And I wish they had gone with a different story because there were so many other more interesting stories they could have done. But I mean, I remember Ahsoka's debut was in that movie, and I mean, she got on my nerves. I mean, it was annoying just to, see her interact with Anakin in a way that it felt like the second coming of like Jake Lloyd's Anakin in a way. It's like oh my god, this character's not gonna be good.
Right.
But it was fascinating to watch the character grow on Clone Wars, and you really felt the weight of when she did walk away from the Jedi Council. You were like, oh my god, this is potentially a game changer. Right. And I mean, so to know that she survived the Clone Wars, to know that she survived Order 66, and to see her now being an integral part of the rebellion in Rebels is fascinating. And it's like you're setting up this inevitable battle with Darth Vader that is is not necessarily going to end well for Ahsoka.
Right.
So, but
and
I mean,
it could also potentially be pretty epic if it's done right.
Absolutely. And I have no reason to doubt that. Think that will be anything less, because the same guy who was one of the head directors on Clone Wars is one of the creators on Rebels. And so, I mean, he's followed this character from day one, and so it's exciting to see where this is all leading. So we were talking about the hype of The Force Awakens, and we got sidetracked a little bit talking about Disney and their plans and stuff like that. So, I mean, with regards to The Force Awakens, I think, I know I can't wait for it. I'm really excited. I want to see how Han, Luke, and Leia and all of those characters are served after 32 years after Return of the Jedi. But at the same time, I mean, there's also remembering 1999, remembering the fan mass, remembering the hype that led up to the fan mass. Yeah. You can't help but think this is going to be 1999 all over again, isn't it?
I don't. Well, that's the thing. My feelings are, as long as it's as good as the 2009 Star Trek reboot.
Yeah.
You know, because like that was I mean, the 2009 Star Trek reboot, obviously, you know, directed by J.J. Abrams, was pretty entertaining.
Oh yeah.
Like that's the thing. Like we're not hardcore Star Trek nerds, so like we, you know, I don't remember Dave. I know Dave's actually a Star Trek fan.
Yeah.
So do you remember Dave taking too many issues with the change in canon with the 2009 Star Trek?
Not that I recall.
Like the big ones being Spock and Uhura.
Yeah.
And Vulcan being destroyed. I think those are the two big canon, you know.
You know, and the thing is, it's like I don't know that we've ever really, because I mean that was released right around the time that he left Georgia, so we never actually saw.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
So I mean, I don't know how much we've ever really talked about it. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't remember hearing anything particularly bad from him about it. I mean, I think certainly with Into Darkness there was more of an issue, but I mean, part of the reason for that is just because of the fact that I mean they shoehorned Khan into that story just ridiculously poorly.
Yeah.
But
emphasis on the term shoehorn.
Yeah.
Like that's like because that's the thing. Like Into Darkness was.
It could have been a really good movie.
I mean, that's the thing. Like,
if it wasn't trying to be Khan.
And that's the thing. Like that's the thing. Like it was an entertaining movie.
Yeah.
It wasn't bad. It was just like that was the thing. Like I think that was the thing. Like it was like Khan did not belong in that movie. That should have been.
Yeah.
That should have been like a whole new kind of adventure. That's the thing. That's why I'm excited about these Star Trek, these new Star Treks, is because it's making something old new again.
Yeah.
With these brand new adventures. That's the thing. Like that's why I'm actually excited about I don't know if you've seen the trailer for Beyond yet.
I still haven't seen the new one for Beyond, the trailer for Beyond yet.
That's the thing. Like that looks like just like a fun Star Trek adventure.
Yeah.
That's all I want out of these movies at this point.
Yeah.
Is like because that's the thing. Like I did think that was actually really smart. I know, and I think J.J. Abrams had a lot to do with that. The fact that why not bring back Kirk, Spock, and McCoy, make them young again, make it fun, make it energetic, make it a big fun action space adventure.
Yeah.
Bringing and that's why it worked.
Well,
there are a lot of reasons. There are a lot of reasons why the Star Trek reboot is as entertaining as it is.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's because of the fact that it taps into something that really works about the best Star Trek movies.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about Wrath of Khan, talking about Voyage Home, talking about
First
Contact, and Search for Spock. And it's because of the fact that there is a sense of fun to those movies.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also a sense of purpose to the story.
Mm-hmm.
And especially
that's something J.J. Abrams does really well too.
And Super 8 was another great example. Example of it. And I mean, even Mission Impossible 3 was a really good Mission Impossible movie.
Mm-hmm.
It was arguably better. I don't know if it was better in the first one, but it was definitely better in the second one.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, there was a purpose. There was a fundamental purpose to that story, just like there was a fundamental purpose to the way he did the first Star Trek, certainly. Same with when he did Super 8. And that was lost in Into Darkness, I think. I mean, yeah, it's a really fun movie, but it's just like when he tried to do a little too much in terms of
fan service.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's where you lose him on.
It's the point where you think Kirk is dead and then Spock is like, Khan! And I'm like,
well, and the fact of the matter is, it's like it doesn't make it better that you're just reversing what they did in Wrath of Khan.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't make it interesting. It just makes it kind of like, really.
But the fact of the matter is, and it's like, no, I am ultimately optimistic, and I'm hopeful that I have very little reason to doubt that J.J. Abrams will do right by Star Wars and with The Force Awakens. And part of the reason is, I mean, he's always been first and foremost a Star Wars fan. Like, that was something that came out when he was working on Star Trek. And so it's very fitting that he is the first director of these new movies, because he is somebody who grew up with the movies, who loved the original movies, and I'm sure there's a part of him that he's probably said that felt maybe as disillusioned as some people were to a certain extent with the prequels, and he wants to return it to the glory days that he remembers. And I think the way that, and I think everything that I've seen about the movie in terms of the trailers, in terms of some of the TV spots, it seems like it's getting back to the things that made Star Wars special in the first place.
Right.
And I think having him at the helm, I think having Lawrence Kasdan work on the screenplay for the first time since Empire and Jedi, I think that is... I think those are all good things. I think the fact that he's shooting on film instead of digitally, I think the fact that he's using practical effects in conjunction with digital effects, I think all of the movies he's made...
And they're also using some miniatures, I believe.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. All of the moves that he has made so far have been very much in the positive. So, I mean, it's going to be exciting to see this week, to see how well he pulls it off. And, yeah, I mean, deep down, I don't think it's going to be the same as 1999. I don't think it's going to be, wanting to see it over and over just to try to convince myself that I liked it. I think it's something where it's like, if I go to this movie over and over again, it's going to be because I enjoy the movie. So, I mean, I think, and it's one of those things where it's like, it is kind of bittersweet to a certain extent that George Lucas is not really involved with this movie. But
at the same time, to a certain extent, it's also kind of like a little bit of a relief, I think, for a lot of people.
And I think part of that is because I do think part of it is because he did become jaded about Star Wars over the years. And I think he did become somewhat resentful about over the years. And, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, it's unfortunate. I think you see it a little bit in the prequels.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I know he was heavily involved in the Clone Wars series, which really did a lot more of the traditional Star Wars type of storytelling than the prequels did. So it's like, the fact that it's a weird almost contradiction in a way, but I think as far as bringing the films back, bringing it back to the big screen, I think it is a good thing that he's not involved with it. Not because I feel any ill will to him, I certainly don't, but just because of the fact that I think it's time for other people to have the opportunity to tell stories in this universe that they want to tell. And I think he's... and I think J.J. Abrams is certainly the perfect person to start out with that. And I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what some of these other directors bring to the table. So,
who are the other two directors? The one that did Looper?
Rian Johnson, who did Looper,
he's
The
doing
Brothers Bloom.
He's doing episode 8.
He's doing episode 8, and
who's doing episode 9?
Colin
Trevorrow or whatever.
Yeah, Trevorrow, who did Jurassic
World
and Safety Not Guaranteed, which was a smaller science fiction movie. He's doing episode 9. Gareth Edwards, who did the recent Godzilla movie, is doing Rogue One, which is the first standalone.
And those guys that did the Lego movie.
Chris Miller and Phil Lord, who did... Phil Lord, who did the Jump Street movies as well as the Lego movie, is doing the Han Solo movie. So
I imagine that
there are going to be some interesting. There are definitely going to be some interesting takes on the Star Wars universe coming out in the next few years. I'm looking forward to it.
Right.
Because I mean, I've been a fan of all of those filmmakers for one reason or another.
Mm.
So, yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting. I mean, obviously, one of the things I'm looking forward to most is the music by John Williams.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm also interested to see what other composers are going to bring to the table to some of these standalone movies.
I hope that you get Giacchino in there at some point. I trust
it. It would be nice to. I mean, I would like to see,
because in a lot of ways he is kind of like the modern day John Williams. I think,
yeah.
In a lot of ways, so.
I mean, it made all the sense in the world that he ended up scoring Jurassic World when J.J. Abrams tapped John Williams to do Episode 7. And
right.
I mean, Giacchino just did such a good job of replicating that, traditional John Williams sound on Super 8 as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I mean, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't looking forward to hearing what John Williams has to do, has left to.
You heard a little
do.
tiny smidge of it. That was like the first time you'd heard a little bit in that
the 60 minutes.
The 60 minutes thing that I posted on Facebook, and I tagged you in it.
Which I still haven't watched because I haven't had time.
You actually that's the first time you hear any of the new music from that, and it was real. I really got a kick out of that. So.
Oh, I'm looking forward to it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I definitely will check it out.
I hate to say it, but like I am somebody who, if I don't want to say no spoilers because that's like. I will if I hear if I see something that if I see a link that will show you something, I will probably go to look.
Yeah,
I hate to admit it, but I know our friend Daniel is very avid about not wanting anything to be spoiled. Although he has tagged us in a couple of things that are made me question that. But
I think now that we're in the home stretch, I think it's getting to the point where it's you don't necessarily want spoilers.
Right.
Like, I want to see reviews of the movie, but at the same time, I don't, because I don't want it ruined for me. And yeah, I mean, I just, I'm so relieved that I've sort of gotten away from as many potential spoilers as I have this time around, because I know going back to the lead up to Fan Menace, it was one of those things where it's like I devoured everything I pretty much could. And that include reading reviews, that include reading articles, this, that, and the other thing. And
that's also
getting the soundtrack album, which spoiled Qui-Gon dying.
Yeah.
Famously, but
that's also when the internet wasn't as prevalent as it is now.
Well, it was just coming into its own.
Well, no,
no, it wasn't nearly as
there were websites.
Reckless.
Yeah, exactly.
As it was.
That was the thing. Actually, now that I think about it, because I had my very first apartment in *99 with Dave and our friend Mike, and that's the thing. That's when I started. That's when I discovered the. That's when I discovered downloading trailers and watching them over and over and over and over and over again, in the comfort of your, on the comfort of your own computer.
Right.
And that's the thing. Dave showed me how to do that.
Yeah.
And and that was the thing. The first thing I ever had, was the Phantom Menace trailer that, of course, I watched over and over and over and over and over again, and scrutinized and analyzed and freeze framed and. And that's the thing. That's actually something that Dave. That's actually one of the very first things that Dave and I really truly bonded over was the trailer for Phantom Menace,
right?
Because of that very thing. But that's the thing. That's kind of interesting how you mentioned how the internet was kind of just in its infancy.
Yeah,
if that's the right term.
Yeah.
As far as websites and what the spoiler potential online.
Yeah, it's not nearly as aggressive in that respect as it is now.
No.
I mean, people, there's a certain amount of people that are respectful of that, but there are just as many people who aren't. And I know I have been very cautious when it comes to reading anything because I respect J.J. Abrams and them trying to keep this as much of a secret as possible. Because I want to be surprised.
Right.
I won't be surprised by the direction that
yeah.
this movie goes.
Mm-hmm.
And because I ended up not really getting that out of Fan Mess because I basically knew everything that could happen in Fan Mess.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was still exciting to see it happen to a certain extent, but that doesn't necessarily mean any of it really surprised me.
Right.
So, but we will see.
I guess.
And I think that's a pretty good place to end.
I think so. It was an interesting discussion. We can always do another one of these.
Oh yeah, I mean, I would definitely like to do one after we both have had a chance to watch Force Awakens
mm-hmm.
and to talk about that a little more in depth.
Right.
But for now, I mean, I think that we covered a pretty wide variety of topics to a certain extent. I mean, we've got a lot to work with. So thank you very much for listening. I'll try to edit this down as much as possible
mm-hmm.
because it's like there is a lot that we went through, but at the same time, it's like there's probably times where we went a little too far, but
Maybe.
But at the same time, it was just let us know in the comments.
Discussion.
It's always fun to talk to you about Star Wars and to go on and
mm-hmm.
on about it and just.
We gotta get David on one of these too.
Yeah, and I definitely want to at some point. I mean, after he's acclimated to being a father after a certain point. I mean, I think that'll probably be a good, probably 2-3 years down the road will probably be a good time to get him involved. But anyway, thank you very much. This is the Sonic Cinema podcast. You can find us at www.sonic-cinema.com.
Shameless.
And,
just shameless.
And my name, once again, is Brian Scuttle.
And I'm Ronnie Haynes.
Thank you very much for listening, and we will catch you next time.